So, what would you do if the most important question of your life arrived not in a classroom and not in a book, but at the bedside of your dying father when you were only 16 years old? In this episode of The Expansion Room, I'm going to be speaking with Stuart Perrin, an international Rudra meditation teacher and author of 9 books, a man who has spent 5 decades helping people to be able to transform tension, grief, and inner chaos into open-hearted living. So let's get started. Stuart, welcome to the Expansion Room.
Thank you for having me here. Wow, what
So
an
good.
introduction, I tell you.
Well, it is so good to have you here. I'm been looking forward to this conversation. So I'd love to start at what I would probably say is the beginning, so to speak, of your journey, which is that moment when everything was cracked open. So take me back to when you were 16 years old and you were watching your father who was hospitalized, he was sick, and he was starting the dying process. What was it that shifted in you and that changed your entire trajectory of your life?
One week before he died, he was lying in bed with 106-degree fever, shaking.
Mm,
He didn't
okay.
recognize myself, my mother, or my sister. He was in some kind of coma. And
Okay.
this went on for a week, Shervon. And I'll never forget, I walked into his hospital room maybe 2 hours before he died. He was lying in bed in a state of total serenity. It's like he had let go of everything. I had never seen that kind of peace, not only in him, in anybody before. And
Yeah.
on top of it, the whole room was full of light. And I was 16 years old, and I didn't know anything about spiritual and, metaphysics and meditation, but I was having literally my first spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And only looking back, I realized that. At any rate, I took his hand and I asked him if he knew me, and he shook his head yes. And probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, I walked out of the hospital room into
Hmm.
the corridor and I met his nurse. His nurse said something to me that changed my life.
Yeah.
She said to me, to her experience, and she worked in oncological, units, ICU, she saw dying people all the time. Just
Yeah.
before people die, they enter a state of total serenity. It's like they have let go of everything in life and they've somehow made peace with God in their heart. They just let go of everything.
Yeah.
And when my father died, my first thought after was, why did he have to wait 49 years
Hmm.
to experience the state of serenity 2 hours before he died? I said,
Yeah.
why couldn't he have experienced it in his life and lived that way? I never saw him in a relaxed, you know, quiet, inner serenity. I mean, he was always, he had to take care of a family and the money and the problems and the this and that. And I
Mm-hmm.
said to myself, Stuart, look, I knew I was a very introverted young man.
Hmm.
I knew I was a very insecure young man. I
Yeah.
knew that I had no sense of purpose in life. I was pretty creative. I was a pretty good basketball player. I got
Hmm.
decent grades in school. They weren't fantastic, but I had no purpose. And I always used to wonder about that when I was a kid. And I thought, Stuart, what is the point of having a purpose? You have a goal to become rich, to get successful in a career, if you can't live with your heart open.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have that state of serenity you saw in your father just before. It changed my life. I suddenly became a hippie. I, I started reading books on, on Zen Buddhism and Hinduism and the whole thing. And I started hanging out in Greenwich Village with, poets and writers and people that my whole life changed.
This was sounding like the 60s.
Yeah, it was the 60s. My whole life changed. And I
Yeah.
started looking for, I knew that I was incapable of building a system inside myself on my own to
Yeah.
find that kind of I needed to find a mentor, somebody who truly had been through the whole struggle and managed to come out and find that kind of inner peace in his life. And I
Uh-huh.
started looking for this person. They call it a guru, a swami. I started looking for this person. I went
Yeah.
half around the world, Shervon, half around the world. I went to Europe, I went to Africa, I was on my way to India all the time, and it
Yeah.
took 9 years of traveling. And I was living in Paris, and I was broke. I used to do like extra work in movies and stuff like that in Paris, and I got earn a living. When I first got there, first time I used to sell newspapers on the streets, I mean,
Okay.
just to get some money to eat and rent. Things were cheap then. You could get a hotel room for $1 a night.
Oh
Dollar.
my goodness.
Yeah, I'm not kidding you. I mean, life was very cheap then. And you didn't need to make billions of dollars in order to pay your rent like you do,
Right.
you know? So I was broke. Called up a friend of mine in New York, and I asked him, I said, can you send me a plane ticket back to America? I said, I'm broke. I need to get a job. I'll pay you back the money once I start working. He sent me a ticket. I picked it up at the American Express in
Mm-hmm.
Paris, and I flew back to New York. I was living on the floor of this friend of mine's apartment. And
Okay.
one evening he said to me, Stuart, let's go out and get some dinner. So I said, great. And there was a restaurant in Greenwich Village they used to serve kind of Mideastern food. And I've always been a big fan of, food from, the Middle East.
Yeah.
We walked, and we're walking on 7th Avenue South. And we
Mm.
came to an Asian art shop, an Oriental art shop. And we're looking in the window, and there's all these Buddhas and paintings and every museum quality art, uh,
Yeah.
very expensive stuff. And this friend of mine said to me, why don't we go in? I said, Charlie, what am I going to do? I'm broke. He said, Stuart, you love this stuff. You love this stuff.
Mm.
I did. I had a
Okay.
I remember once, just a little sidetrack, I was walking on Riverside Drive once, and there was a museum there that I think is still there. And they were
Mm.
having an exhibition of Tibetan paintings in the
Uh,
museum. I
mm-hmm.
walked into the museum. I was about, I guess I was about 20 years old at the time. And I found like I walked in, I saw all these paintings, and I felt like I found my family. All these paintings.
Uh-huh. Something was calling you young.
At a very young age. Well, anyway, I went
Indeed.
to this gallery. Standing in the middle of this gallery was a man, and I took one look at him, and I saw the exact energy I saw in the hospital room when my
Mm.
father passed on. I saw light coming out of him. I saw a sense of peace in him, but it wasn't a peace of dying. It was a man who certainly found how to have that peace living
Mm-hmm.
his life. And I was
Yeah.
attracted like a magnet. I was like, just attracted to him.
Right.
He started showing me pictures of himself studying in India, and I didn't even say a word to him. He just was talking. And then he said to me, if I'd like to study with him, I should come back here at 5 o'clock tomorrow. So as I was leaving the gallery, Siobhan, I looked back and I saw that same energy I saw in my father's hospital. I said, oh
Yeah.
my God, Stuart, I don't know what's going on, but I got to come see this man again. As we went back, after we had dinner, this is a great story. After we went back to have dinner, we went back to this friend of mine's apartment where he was living. He was living in Chelsea. At that time,
Okay.
Chelsea was kind of a slum. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
$40 a month apartments. And, when you're starting your life, you would go live in these places. And
Yes,
my,
indeed.
And I was sleeping on the floor of this apartment, bathtub in the kitchen, toilet in the hall, the whole. And we met a guy on the stairwell who I knew because I had lived in this building before. And he
Okay.
said to us, he said, "Why don't you come into my apartment and have some tea?" So we said, "Great." So we went into his apartment. This guy had maybe a $500,000 Oriental art collection in his tenement apartment. And I believed my eyes. I said, "Where did you get this stuff?" He said, "Well, there's a guy in Greenwich Village named Rudy." And Rudy was the man I had met an hour before.
There you go.
And I said to myself, "Stuart, the gods are talking to you. Once
Exactly.
listen."
Mm-hmm.
I went down to see him the next day, 5 o'clock. I went to his gallery. He showed me a meditation exercise that I was looking for because the principles of it were not based on listening to your breathing and, meditating on the third eye and all this stuff, a lot of stuff that people teach. It was based
Mm-hmm.
on building internal foundation,
Yep.
finding the place inside yourself where the foundation is, learning about the chakra system,
Mm-hmm.
the seven basic chakras. And the chakra right below the navel is the area of balance, harmony, foundation, real inner strength. I discovered later on, the Japanese call that the hara, the Chinese the tian. They talk about qi.
Mm-hmm.
Qi is the real power inside a human being. The first thing he showed me is how to bring my attention into the chakra below the navel
Mm-hmm.
so I could use the thing that was killing me, the mind, which never shut up, full of conflict, full of tension. I could use the intense and powerful energy of mind to focus in the chakra below the navel, and it becomes like a surgical instrument that
Mm-hmm.
opens that area like a great lotus flower. This is the first thing he showed me. And I said, "Oh
Wow.
my God, Stuart, this is what you have spent 9 years looking for." I was told, I used to tell people used to tell me, love, peace, and eat vegetables. Chant mantras. I mean, I used to hear this all the time from rabbis and swamis, and you know,
Uh-huh.
and I would say to them, "Well, how do I get my mind to shut up?
Yeah.
How do I get my emotions to shut up? How do I get to deal with this insane sexual energy I have? That it constantly is getting me into all kinds of situations I didn't really want to be in. I mean,
Right.
how do I get this inner insane asylum of mine under control, master it, so that it begins to work for me instead of controlling the way I function in my life?" But when he
Yeah.
told me, "Bring your attention below the navel," and I knew simple things I knew that singers, when they really are great singers, they sing from that area. Dancers,
Mm.
the great dancers dance from that area. It's the
Mm-hmm.
center of balance inside. It's the real power inside them. Athletes, when they're in that zone, they're not in their heads. They're
Right.
they're here. And I
Yeah.
said, "My God, Stuart, this is something you have to learn." Well, I started
Awesome.
studying with this man, and I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, I discovered early on the only person I was really up against was me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a constant reminder to me that I have to master my internal life.
Yeah.
And he busted my ass. I mean, constantly he busted my ass. Unbelievable the things that we used to. I could tell you stories that were, I mean, unbelievable. But it made me realize, Stuart, whatever you come up against in life, it could be your enemy, but you can learn to deal with that in a way where it teaches you to grow. Instead
Yes.
of dealing with it through anger, getting upset, allowing your energy to drain out of you and getting
Mm.
into some kind of battle with another human being or a society or political thing or whatever it is, you can
Yeah.
use it as a way of finding out what in me has attracted this situation,
Yeah.
what in me has to change. And then if you find what in you has to change by working and developing a chakra system, you can initiate that change. You become more of a human being. You learn how to deal with other people with your heart open. instead of
Mm.
dealing with them through anger or knowing better, being right. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's anything worse in the world than hanging out with people that are right all the time. They drive you out of your mind. You know, they know the answer to everything, and it's all just,
Yeah. That seems to be where we are in society right now.
oh boy. And people,
Oh,
they never listen to each other.
right.
They never listen.
Right.
What am I going to learn from this person? I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. When I was younger, I used to work in restaurants. I would work as a waiter, bartender, stuff like that, just to earn money, pay rent and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to work in one, it was the last restaurant I ever worked in. And I worked, and there was a bartender there. I would go up and I'd say, "Give me a whiskey sour." I couldn't get in. Every time I went up to him, I got into an argument with him. Every time. I wanted a martini, I would have a fight with him, something. There was nothing I could get along with this guy. One night I had nothing to do, and I'm standing at the bar, and I heard him talking about going out and have dinner, a midnight dinner, with his girlfriend.
Hmm.
And it blew I couldn't believe it. This guy could have a girlfriend. I loved him. I said, she must be a saint. I said, this must be a remarkable woman, and she has something to teach me about
Mm-hmm.
finding the goodness in a human being, that you can like them instead of fighting them. From that moment, I never had another argument with this guy again. We actually became
Ah,
friends. We would sit,
beautiful.
talk about things and this, that we became friends. There was never another argument. I
Beautiful.
found in him a seed, well, let's say a seed of God, a seed of life, something in him that was positive. And I discovered it was me, it wasn't him. I was
Mm-hmm.
attracting in this person the negative thing. You understand?
Mm.
And the only way I knew how to deal with it was to fight with him. And
Yeah.
instead of go, what is deeper there? What is more human about this human being?
Yeah.
Where does this person's heart open? What does he like? How did this woman, this amazing woman, go out and have a midnight breakfast with, who taught me? I never met her, but I've always felt a great rapport with this person, that she taught me so much about liking somebody I didn't like.
Right. Right.
Well,
I
anyway,
love this for you. I love your story so much because, number one, you and I are from the same hometown, New York City. And the fact that you go halfway around the world to find a teacher and you come back to New York City and you find him right there in your city. And you study and you learn and you practice this meditation, which he taught you straight away. And it changes your whole life. It changes your trajectory of your life. It changes how you see yourself and the world around you.
it's,
And it's such a delightful story. And I just loved listening to your book, your audio book, because it really reminded me that we as human beings so often focus on the wrong thing or on the wrong things about other people, and through this practice, through being in his energy, you learned a different way.
Absolutely. It taught me a very simple reality. You know what it taught me more than anything else? Every human being sees their own unique reality. There aren't two
Yeah,
people on the earth that see the world the same way.
right. We're vibrating at different frequencies, and so as a result, we see things differently.
So everybody is trying to fit everyone else into their reality.
Yes,
Nobody
indeed.
fits. So what you have is tension, problems, anger. You know,
Yeah,
they have craziness. Instead of people just, hey, let me listen to this. Maybe they have something to teach me. Maybe
yeah,
there's something in their reality that I need to learn, which can help me as a human being. Listening
yes.
to them. Why do I have to be right all the time? Why do I
Mm-hmm.
impose my reality on? Let me listen. And I think the key
Hmm.
to any real conversation is listening.
Absolutely.
Listening. I mean, when I was younger, in my early 20s, I studied acting in New York.
Okay.
First thing the acting teacher taught me was you have to listen. Acting is about listening.
Hmm.
You're on stage, you listen and you react to what somebody is saying to you in the script. And
Yep.
and when I met Rudy later on, it was the same thing. Listen to
Hmm.
life. And he once told me, Shervon, I'll never forget this. He asked me to go to Texas to run a meditation center for him.
Hmm.
And I was there for 9 years. Also, nine is a big number in my life. I was there for 9 years. But he told
Hmm.
me, I want you to go for 3 weeks. So as I was leaving, he looked at me and he said, Stuart, if anyone ever asks you who the guru is, just tell them the guru is life. Now, it took me a long time to truly understand what he meant. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I began to realize, I am not the guru.
Right.
Swami this one and Yogi that one and this rabbi,
Hmm.
they're not the gurus. Their job is to teach people to get strong enough to sit in front of the real guru. Life
Yeah.
is the most
Life.
extraordinary university that can teach one anything one needs to learn to know in order to grow and become more human. And I think we are
Absolutely.
born here to learn this.
Yeah.
We're
I
born,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
we're
Yes.
born here to learn that we need to listen to life. Why did we
Hmm.
come to this crazy place?
I used to ask that question a lot. And my own teacher, so I studied Tantra yoga for a number of years under one teacher, and he said something similar because he also didn't believe in this whole guru this and guru that. But he believed that life itself, that inner listening, is what you needed in order to have that evolution, right, within you, to shift, to change, to grow, to evolve. And so that's really it. It's not the in every religion or denomination, there's this idea that people follow a certain teacher, almost like to the ends of the earth, but it's really that we're supposed to find it within ourselves.
No, but look, I don't agree with that. In every religion, if you get to the source of the religion, if you get
Mhm.
the beginnings of the religion, Christianity, Judaism,
Mhm.
every religion, Hinduism, it's all about that. I mean, look, what is the
Yeah,
Bible? What is the Bible about? And this
yeah,
said, Adam and Eve come out of a state of innocence. Every child that is born onto this planet comes from a state of innocence. They
mm-hmm,
have to go through this in the Bible, the wars, the this, the that, ultimately to find what? The Messiah.
mm-hmm.
And that whole journey is a journey through oneself.
Oneself every
Oneself.
time.
That is really where, the answers lie.
Yep.
Finding how to get beyond the tension, the insecurity, to a place where one is connected to spirit.
Yeah.
And what is the Messiah? It's the resurrection of oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Oneness with God. That is to me, the Messiah.
Absolutely.
We build that system inside that enables us. And I learned this from Rudy, in the development of a chakra system. I
Yep.
learned that the absolutely essential ingredients in it was the building of an inner life that
Mm.
enables you to activate Kundalini. And
Yes.
Kundalini is the pathway to enlightenment.
Yes.
And that's what there's seven chakras. There's one in here, the mind, the brain,
Mm-hmm.
throat, the heart, right below
Yeah.
the navel, the sex, the base of the spine, the top of the head. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, you said tantra. I on my website, stuartperrin.com, I wrote a book. I put a book there called Tantra.
Yes, I saw that.
And and it's kind of a coffee table book. I try to get a publisher
Mhm.
for it, but it's a very expensive book, and nobody knows me, so nobody was willing to take a gamble with it. So I put it on my website, and it
Yeah.
really explores the whole nature of tantra.
Yeah.
The sexual energy, the heart chakra, the use of the mind, how one
Mm-hmm.
all these tools. to develop a simple reality, which
Yeah.
is a oneness with higher energy in the universe, the resurrection of oneself, the
Yeah.
resurrection of one's inner life, one's connection with God. We all have that in us,
Yeah.
so befuddled and cloudy and encumbered by our
Hmm.
and meditation. I also tell people, Shabbat, meditation is not a religion.
Right. It's not.
It's not a cult. It's a craft,
Yes.
and it's a craft that enables us to do a very important thing: master our inner selves.
That's right.
Because we are the only reason why we don't live in this world with inner peace.
That's
So
right.
learn how to master ourselves.
That's right. We absolutely do. It's you master the inner world and you then are able to master your outer world. You don't have to strong arm the outer world to get it to be what you want it to be if you actually take the time to work on your inner world.
Well, when you master your inner self, look, look, this is what I've learned. Very simple thing. Everything I see in the external world is a reflection of me.
Yeah.
Everything. It's like
Yeah.
looking at a mirror image of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, I used to protest and war and make love, not war. All the stuff that went on in the '60s, the Vietnam War. One
Mm-hmm.
day I realized, Stuart, no. I said, what you see outside yourself, there's a war going on inside you.
Yeah.
And the external world reflects that war going inside each and every human being. If
Mm-hmm.
people would just fix their inner lives and arrive at a place like my father did 2 hours before he died, where there's inner peace and quiet
Mm-hmm.
and serenity, the whole world would change.
Yeah.
The whole world would change.
It
Everybody would
would.
be looking at the world from their heart instead of from their head. Everybody
Yes.
would be listening to what am I learning from other people? What do they teach? It would all change. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not naive. There are 8 billion people who are not going to do this. So then what's the answer? I have to do it for me. I
Right.
have to get strong enough not to allow myself to get sucked into what they call Maya, illusion,
Yes.
the external world.
That's right.
That mirror, it's a reflection of me. It is not the true me.
That's right.
So that was part of the things, studying with my teacher, these are the things I learned. And I began to teach when he made me a teacher. And I started teaching, I began to learn more and more about this whole thing of Maya and illusion and how it changes if I change. Well, the way we perceive the world changes. Even Christ says, love your enemies.
Uh-huh.
And
Love
why
your
did he
enemies
say
and
that?
pray for them.
Because the enemies have something to teach you about you. Why
That's
did you
right.
attract that enemy? And if
Yeah.
you are functioning with an open heart, you know, you're not going to attract an enemy like that.
Indeed. Now you teach in your meditations that one of the goals is to become a happy person, living with an open heart, filled with love and compassion, joy, peace, right? And as you mentioned, this world does quite the opposite of those things, and it glorifies achievement and productivity as well, right? And so, what does an open heart actually look like in practice? And how does Rudra meditation get you there?
I mean, look, suddenly, instead of the world being an enemy, life, every breath you take becomes sacred.
Mm.
Life itself becomes sacred. The food you eat, the air there's a Hindu mantra, so hum.
Yes.
So hum, if the definition of it in English is I am that. When you
Hmm.
inhale, you breathe in I, and you breathe in all of life. When you exhale, that. I am
Yeah.
one with everything. And
Hmm.
and 8 billion people are walking around praying.
Yeah.
Everybody's breathing. And that's what's just, it's I am that. And what
Yeah.
interferes with the I am that is this mind of ours that has no discipline, that is, that is full of tension and anxiety, and it interferes with the flow of I am one with everyone, and everything is there to
Hmm.
nurture.
Yeah.
So this is what I've learned. And I've also learned, look, I spent 30 years being in business,
Hmm.
and I
Exactly.
was forced to, my teacher Rudy made me go in business. And I'll tell you what he did. It's really a funny story, you know. I was living in Texas. This is a great story. I was living in Texas, and he asked me to build ashrams for him and meditation centers, and I was doing that. I had started one in Dallas and Austin and Nacogdoches and Phoenix and it's all over the place. I was teaching in prisons. I had a big program going on in prisons in Texas, teaching
Wow.
inmates. I was teaching at a university. I was actually teaching an accredited course in Kundalini
Nice.
Yoga at a university in
Oh
Dallas.
my goodness. Wow.
Plus running an ashram, having to run a business because I needed to
Hmm.
eat, and none of this was providing me with any money, and I needed to eat, and I had to run a business, and I mean I was like an
Hmm.
octopus. So Rudy came down there, and he came down 6 months after he told me I would be there for 3 weeks. And I said to him, I said, Rudy, I didn't want to live in Texas. I mean, I lived in Paris, I lived in Rome, I lived all over the world. I had no dream of moving to a little town in Texas. And I
Right.
said to him, Rudy, it's been a hell of a 3 weeks. He said to me, Stuart, you're on your fourth day. And and it's true. I said, I knew that I will be finished here when the cycle is over. Okay.
Right. Whatever that cycle was, huh?
Anyway, I'm standing on the porch with him of the
Mhm.
house, of the meditation center. And he said to me, Stuart, you're not working hard enough. So I
Huh.
looked at him and I said, Rudy, what? What do you want me to do? And he points his head and he said, buy that building. I said, buy
Huh.
that building. The building was a strip mall shopping center. Buy that
Huh.
building. I said, Rudy, I have $600 to my name. He said to me, anyone can do with money. And Shervon, a month later, I bought the building.
All right.
And it was amazing. And it really taught, what he was telling me, Stuart, you have to stop being afraid of money. Stop
Hmm.
being afraid of financial success. You have to learn how to do that and still live with an open heart of love.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
teach what you teach. And if you can't learn that, you'll never be any good to anybody. How to live
Hmm.
in this world and to be free of this world at exactly the same time. And I
That's the
bought the
balance.
building. The building, we opened a restaurant there, became the most successful restaurant in North Texas. And it was unbelievable. One day I had an idea, if we have belly dancing here, I said, I mean, this is going to attract mobs of. Anyway, I met this woman. I put an ad in the paper. I wanted to find belly dancers. And this woman walked in, and she was just gorgeous. And she was, I mean, alive and full of life and absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. So she auditioned for me, and she was a great dancer. So I hired her. And she
Hmm.
said to me, Stuart, I love this place. I won't even charge you money to dance here. This is what she told me. It brought a tear
Wow.
to my eye. It was so. She used to dance. I mean, there was a line of 150 people that were lined up to get into this restaurant every Friday and Saturday night.
Wow.
It became a booming. And I had to learn, how do you get successful like this without allowing it to get you greedy,
Right.
unhappy. And so he taught me that life itself is a
Hmm.
miracle. You have to be able to deal with every level.
That's
Later
right.
on, I wound up in the Asian art business in Manhattan, and I had galleries there, and I became hugely successful. And it never stopped me from teaching. It
Hmm.
stopped me from doing the most significant thing I had to do with my life. That was the transmission of this Shakti and this energy to help other human beings.
Beautiful.
And the money never interfered. And I had to learn that. He had to buy that building. I said, Rudy, what? I have $600. How am I going to buy?
Yeah. So first you had to believe that you could buy the building, but also to not let all the success go to your head,
And then
basically.
I discovered how to do it, which was
Hmm.
I couldn't do it. I had to go to a higher power in myself.
Yeah.
I had to get the energy and the wisdom that would enable me to do it without it interfering with myself and the spiritual
Indeed.
path that I was on. And that all came.
Indeed.
In 1 month it came. And I went to a bank, I got a loan, and I bought the building. Raised the money for the down payment and bought the building.
Beautiful. What you just shared there reminds me, so I've talked about this on my show before. I was raised in a Pentecostal Christian household, and I'm the child of pastors. And I remember a quote of Jesus, I believe it's attributed to Jesus, be in the world, but not of the world. And so that's exactly what you described there.
Exactly. That is
Yeah,
exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, indeed,
Life,
indeed. And so, go ahead.
then life itself becomes a miracle.
Yeah,
Everything in life becomes sacred.
indeed,
If you're,
indeed.
in the world but not of the world, everything.
Right, right. Remembering who you are, ultimately,
And
remembering who you are.
this, listen, Rudy was the person he saved my life.
Yeah.
He saved my life. He saved my life a number of times. When I walked into his gallery, I asked him a year later, I said, what happened that day when we met Rudy? He said, Stuart, I saw you looking in the window of this gallery. And I was like seeing my son lost in the universe. I
Hmm.
pulled you in the door. And my teacher, Rudy, died in an airplane crash.
Yeah.
And I was in the airplane with him when he passed on.
Yeah.
We were flying to upstate New York. We were going to a place where he was going to teach. And we got caught in this incredible fog. I wrote a book about this actually, and it's in one of the books that people can get it at Amazon. I have a book called The Mystical Ferry Boat and Other Stories. And one of the other stories is this story about this airplane.
Yeah.
And I was holding his hand at the time that we hit this mountain. All I heard was the pilot scream, "Oh my God." And I turned around and I was knocked unconscious,
Hmm.
and my teeth were knocked out. Anyway, at that moment, my teacher died, and the only reason I survived that crash is he put his life inside me.
Hmm.
He put his soul force inside me that enabled me to survive that crash. And I'll
Hmm.
never forget, I tried to give him artificial restoration or resuscitation, and I
Hmm.
realized he was gone, he had passed. And my first thoughts were, Stuart, he said, first I thanked him for
Hmm.
allowing me to be with him the last moments of his life. Then I said, Stuart, now you really find out what you learned in the last 6 years.
That's
Now
right.
you will have to apply that without him being that crutch that you could always use. Now you will have to apply everything you've learned in the last 6 years.
Hmm.
That realization enabled me to move forward in life instead of getting depressed and unhappy, and the person
Yeah.
the dearest to me in the world just died, who I loved, profoundly.
Hmm.
It just basically saved my life.
Yeah.
It just gave me a purpose. As a Stuart, you have to incorporate and learn from everything you learned from him over the last 6 years, and just allow it to grow inside you to
Hmm.
becomes a vital and absolute integral aspect of your inner life. And that's the way I've lived my life. This is like 50 years ago this happened.
Yeah. That's it. Now you just distilled something profound, not only just in the meditation, but in sharing what you just shared. What do you feel like you want, say, the reader of your book or a person listening and watching this episode to know? What do you want them to walk away with and understand about this particular practice that saved your life?
Well, I think the first thing they should understand is the only person in life they're up against is themselves.
Hmm.
And if they want a spiritual life, they shouldn't have any sense of not, you have to have somebody in your life who can mentor you.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's been over it and has managed to master it and is willing to share this with. This is probably one of the greatest treasures that life has to offer.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people don't realize that. They think that they can do it on their own. I don't think anyone can do this. This is too difficult. You're
Mm.
dealing with totally intangible energy. You're dealing with a higher force of energy, and you have to transmit it as living reality in your life. You have
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to do it. You have, you have to learn how to develop a chakra system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn how to get the mind quiet. How
Mm-hmm.
to get the throat open, how to get the heart open. You have to learn all these things. You have to build a system inside that is strong enough to do it. And that is
Absolutely.
what a teacher does. A teacher should serve that purpose, not to have disciples and not to be the guru sitting on an ivory tower that everybody is kissing their feet all the time. I mean, look,
Right.
I've been through that, and trust me, it's boring. It's really boring. Life itself is the miracle.
Yeah.
The whole point of all this is people have to develop their humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And when the highest levels of somebody's humanity is developed, when the heart is really open and there's unconditional love, and there's the ability to transmit that unconditional love and compassion to other human beings, when there's kindness and forgiveness in life, when these things exist, you understand, a spiritual life is a snap. It's a snap. The cosmos will
Mm-hmm.
come looking for you. That somebody has truly learned what they were born on the earth to learn, how to become a human being.
Yes.
And one of the first things my teacher told me, he said, Stuart, the world is starving to death.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pandemic. People are spiritually starving to death.
Yeah.
And that is why there's so many problems in the world. It's like it goes across every border, every race,
Mm-hmm.
religion. It doesn't matter. People are starving to death spiritually.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
he said to me, well, we're suffering from spiritual starvation in this world. And
Yes.
how do you get, I always kid around with my students. I say, look, when a car is out of gas, it's got to go to the gas station. You got to fill the tanks. Otherwise, it's not going to go anywhere. I said, people run out of energy and they still function on tension. You understand? And instead of going to a place where they can get Shakti, energy, spirit, put into them by somebody who has mastered this over years of working on themselves, so they
Yeah.
can use that creatively in their life. They run out of tension, they run out of energy, and they live their lives just with tension.
Indeed.
I always kid around, I say cars are smarter than people. You run out of gas, you stop running, and until somebody fills you up, people
That's
run out
right.
of gas and they continue to drive everybody else crazy.
So true. So true. I love that. Oh, Stuart, thank you so much for this conversation, for bringing this conversation to the expansion room. Because after 50 years of teaching and all the books that you've written, and still really at the heart of all of it is your youthful self, that teenage boy who sat beside his father, who decided that peace was worth pursuing for your
Yeah,
whole lifetime.
that's exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
Shervon, thank you for having this. This is just great. What you've done is just a blessing, and I have nothing but gratitude to be here and have shared my life with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so grateful you joined me today. I have been looking forward to this for sure. And To the audience, where can people find you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, I have a website, stuartperrin.com.
Hmm.
They can find me there. There's something like, I don't know, there must be 30 podcasts I've done on my website, there, and that I've done with people all over the world, and books.
Yeah.
I can get all my books on my website, plus uh, a lot of stuff. There's just an endless amount of stuff there, videos and
Yeah.
talks and lectures and about exactly what I do. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, uh, where can they find me? They can find me on YouTube. I have like
Yeah.
1,350 talks I've given on YouTube.
Indeed.
So there's a lot of places they can find me. And I would
Good.
recommend the last book that I wrote. I've written a lot of books, but this last book really goes into what I teach in enormous depth. I
Hmm.
think people can, and it's also written in a language that people can understand.
Yeah.
It's not full of Sanskrit words and terminology and Hindu, Buddhist, iconography. It's just in everyday language and kind of the language of jazz, which I like to write that kind of,
Hmm.
you know. And it's there, and people can enjoy it. They can get it on Amazon. They can get it on Ingram's, Spark,
Right.
which distributes books to almost every bookstore in the world. So they can order from just about any bookstore they go into. And it's called Rudra Meditation, Transforming Life's Tensions into Joy and Love. And,
Indeed. And that is the one that I read or listened to rather on Audible. So,
and then there's other one. I wrote a book, just to finish, I wrote a book called Leah, A Story of Meditation and Healing.
mm,
And it's the story about a 13-year-old girl who was told by the doctors that she had a cancer the size of a grapefruit inside
mm,
and had 3 weeks to live. And it's a story about how this meditation worked with her to help her overcome the problem. And this meditation that I teach, it's kind of an amazing story. And
amazing.
I go through it in depth, showing people how it works and this and that. But it's written as a story, not as a text.
Okay.
So, it's kind of it's just I mean, it brings tears to my eyes when I think about it. It's called Leah Story. And, what- one thing, I sent this story to like, I don't know how many publishers, agents, this book.
Mm.
I got 72 rejections
Ah.
on this. And
Hmm.
I used to run a gallery in Manhattan, and a lot of celebrities used to come in all the time, movie stars and people like that. They would buy art from me, and they liked, this Hindu Buddhist art I used to sell. And Richard Gere used to come in a lot, and we would talk about meditation, spiritual things. And one
Hmm.
day I said, Richard, Richard, you're in this world. You're in the world of Hollywood and movies. And, I said, I want you to do me a small favor. I said, can you read this manuscript? And if you
Mm.
like it, maybe you know somebody who would publish it. Called me back 2 days later and said, Stuart, this is a fantastic book. I love this book. I called up the editor in chief at Wisdom Publications, told him about your book. He wants to see your book. They called me back 2 weeks later. We're going to publish a book.
There you go.
The book got published, and
Beautiful.
and Richard wrote an introduction to it also. And so
Beautiful.
I would recommend that book to people if they're interested in that one and the one Rudra Meditation and there's a book.
Yeah.
There's novels I've written and all kinds of stuff that I've written.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I did not know about that book. All right. I will be going to look for that one. Thank you for being here and sharing your energy and your wisdom with this show with me and with the audience. We will definitely stay in touch. And to my audience, if this conversation opened up something in you, let it stay open. You do not have to figure it all out by yourself or before you even begin. The practice itself is the path. So keep doing the work and showing up for yourself. and trust that the version of you that is becoming is already on the way. So until I see you next time here in the expansion room, take good care.